Hello, everyone. How are you this morning or this afternoon? Actually, welcome to the DeanHouston How to Use Paid Media to Generate Leads webinar. We're going to wait a couple more minutes until we get a few more attendees on board, and then we'll get started. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. For those of you who've just joined us, again, welcome to the DeanHouston webinar. This is the third in our series. The webinar for today is how to use paid media to generate leads. I'm going to introduce our panelists today, but first, my name is Amy Jones. I'm an account director at DeanHouston, and I lead the PSG team. The panelists for today are Jamie Grabert, Laura Henninger, and Maggie Carrino, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves as you can see them on the screen.
Hi, I'm Jamie Grabert. I have 20 years in media, the last 3 of which being in here at DeanHouston. My duties range from leading the media strategy, budgets and analytics to helping identify trends and competitive advantages in the market. And we would like to welcome you today. We're excited to have this webinar and share our knowledge and hopefully have some fun.
Lauren?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And like Amy said, I am the media manager here at DeanHouston, and some of my responsibilities are to assist Jamie in whatever she needs and also help Maggie. And then I also help identify different media trends and technologies that we can use to implement for our clients. And I come with almost 10 years experience in digital strategy on the media and technology side.
Hi, everyone. Oh.
Go ahead, Maggie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie. Maggie Carrino. I'm the media associate at DeanHouston. I work with Jamie and Lauren every day. Some of my tasks include ad trafficking. I gather all the metrics for all of our clients, and I also keep the trains on the track for the department.
And she is not kidding about the last one. Absolutely not kidding. We would be lost without her. And we do want to give a special thanks to Amy today. While Amy mentioned that she is an account manager, Amy is also a media expert and is one of my favorite people to bounce ideas off of. So thank you, Amy.
Sure, you're welcome. I'm happy to be here. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started.
So one of the things that we're going to talk to you about today is is earned, or the 3 different types of media. The first one being earned media. This is mostly publicity received through any type of promotional effort that you're not paying for, that's not on what we call an owned channel. This can include press releases, mentions in trade publications, social media, content shares on your social media, and then of course reviews. The other type of media is owned media, and those are those channels that you maintain yourself, whether it be your website, your blog, e-newsletters that you send out through your subscriber list, any type of catalog, brochure, anything that's really hosted on your website that you yourself promote or develop. And then, of course, your social media pages and accounts. And the big thing we want to talk to you about today is paid media, which is basically otherwise referred to as advertising. And this is marketing activity that takes place on any paid channel, typically to a third party, such as print ads, banner ads, native ads, anything from paid social to pay-per-click, radio, sponsored content, billboards, and then of course those digital television ads for your Roku or connected television. So we're really excited to have this conversation today, and we would encourage anyone that has a question or anything, go ahead and put that in at any time, and we'll address all of those at the end.
Great. So also today, as part of our webinar, we're going to do a few polls. The first one is, what is the component that all of these types of media have in common? I'm going to launch the poll, and I'd like you all to provide your input. We'll give you guys about 15 more seconds, and then we'll close the poll. I think you all knew the answer to this one. Okay. So the results of this are pretty clear. 92% chose content, and 8% none of the above. Images and URLs were not part of the equation for this group, which is actually true. So I'm going to let Jamie keep talking.
So here we're glad that most of you picked content, because that is very true. You know, one thing here at DeanHouston is we do know that content is really the solid foundation for all of these channels. So Lauren's going to talk to us a little bit more about that.
All right, so at DeanHouston, we use an integrated approach when it comes to marketing, and all of these channels that are featured right here, some of which Jamie spoke to earlier, are all of how we, have content centered around that. And that is what helps bring everything together to make your marketing campaign successful. And in this diagram, you will kind of see how everything kind of starts intersecting with each other as well. And that's really, again, why content is the center of our approaches. And here is our paid media cross-section. So now that we've kind of talked about content, this is then the next step in how we do our planning. And what you're seeing here is an abbreviated media plan that shows a snapshot of when each tactic will run, how long it will run for. And in this example, you're seeing some of the tactics that we would be running and how they're flighted out for during specific periods or an always on approach. And the only thing that isn't in here that you would see on one that we would present to you is budgets. We normally include budgets when it's a for real paid media cross section. And while not every tactic featured on this example is one for lead generation, all these tactics do help solve an overarching marketing goal.
So we're gonna talk about our second poll here. I'm gonna launch it. What paid media tactic do you value most? Obviously, and we're gonna talk a lot about planning in a few minutes. What works best and what you can utilize for your campaigns depends on, audiences and budgets and lots of other objectives. But I'm gonna launch the poll and we're gonna find out what you value most. give everyone about 10 more seconds, and then I will close the poll and show you the results. This time it was a tad more spread out, but actually two answers rose to the top. So from your perspective, the tactic that you value most right now is sponsored content and advertorials with 45%, pay-per-click 36%, and banner and e-newsletter ads and print ads were tied for third. So, you know, again, how we utilize these depends on lots of different things. So we're going to start this part of the webinar with the discussion about planning.
All right, so one of the first things we look at when we begin media planning is the target audience, and that is who they are through the personas. And this is honestly one of my favorite parts of media planning, is looking through that persona, because that persona really paints the picture of who our target audience is and where we can find them online and offline. And this really helps us identify the right publications and networks for ad placement. And this really allows us to decide the exact tactics to also activate to help us reach our goals. And in this case of what we're talking about would be a lead generation goal.
So back to the question, why did we ask that question? Well, that's one of the things that we look at is identifying how we're going to target, who we're going to target, and why we're targeting them, and with what types of content we're going to target them with. So it's interesting to know the last time we did this, we had primarily a PPC. This time it was sponsored content, and both of those are great traffic drivers. But we look at those when we talk about budget allocations. We look at that, we look at the personas like Lauren just mentioned for several reasons. One is, are we doing a general audience targeting? Is this something where when we that we have a low budget, but we need to get really focused with the hyper targeting? Not that we don't target, generally speaking, but the targets change based on budgets and overall goals. The other thing that we look at is the cost per lead based on the tactic. You know, sponsored content and PPC are two ways that we can do that offer a lot of more bang for our buck in terms of the cost per lead. The other thing is what's going to be available around the timing. Product launches, specific campaigns, all of those tie back into budgeting as well as events, trade shows, and seasonality. One thing that we want to focus on in this particular webinar is, now that trade shows have been ultimately canceled through the rest of this year, and many are going virtual into the first quarter of next year, we want to look at ways we can still keep those lead generation tactics going, keep your lead counts up in those touch points with your potential customers. So the real goal in this is to make sure that your paid media objectives are tying back to your media goal or to your marketing goals, which are tying into your overall business goals. You know, that is key to making all of this successful, because if one is not in line with the other, then we're not going to be as successful. You're not going to get the leads. You're not going to have the engagements with your audience that you're paying for. So then we talk about the value of proactive versus reactive, and then of course optimizing the media plan. Here at DeanHouston, we do things on a constant evolution or constant optimization. So we're looking at numbers on a monthly basis, but we're able to do that because we plan proactively. In the beginning of the year, as we head into a planning season, we're going to do a more in-depth analysis of what your current media tactics are. What are some new options? What worked well? We're going to look at improved audience targeting. You know, we're seeing a lot of shifts in age groups as baby boomers are starting to retire, and younger staffers are taking those decision-making roles. What type of content do we need to use? What tactic is working? Is social going to work better than, say, a banner ad? Is a sponsored ad content or sponsored content native ad strategy going to work better than a PPC, or is this something that we do in tandem? All of these things are considered in the proactive planning phase. We also take a more strategic look when proactively budgeting or proactively planning than we can if we're having to plan on the fly, right? And then we look at how all of these tactics are going to work together, the synergy of everything. So that's kind of the overall, the linear plan to planning. But then we go into this optimization cycle and we take a look at the metrics, as Lauren's going to talk to us about here in a little while. We talk about the constant monitoring of the results, and then the understanding of what's going on in the market, as well as understanding the goals and tactics as they may be changing throughout the year. You know, this year's a very prime example of that. I know a lot of our clients have been very blessed to be able to kind of keep on business as usual, or to stay semi-close to those plans that we had. But there are some adjustments that need to be made due to them not being at trade shows. So we're making shifts to go from, say, an in-person trade show to a virtual trade show. Well, how are we going to get the word out about that? So then it becomes a re-optimization of the media plan itself.
All right, so now we're ready to talk about KPIs, and what this means is it's going to be what we're going to measure and what success looks like with these KPIs that we have featured. So setting your KPIs is an important step for paid media campaigns, but also for lead generation campaigns. So what we're going to discuss are some of the most common KPIs that are associated to a lead generation campaign. And that first one is lead count. So that's going to be the number of leads acquired from the campaign. And something you're going to want to do when you are monitoring lead counts is make sure that you set that lead goal, so that way you can continue to monitor throughout the campaign on what it is that you're trying to achieve and that benchmark for optimizations down the road. And then there are conversions, so the number of users who complete an action desired, such as filling out that form, downloading the materials, watching a video. Those are the other things that you want to just monitor to where you really know, are we trending in the right direction as these campaigns are running, and especially with the tactics that are driving those conversions. And then we have our cost per lead, your cost per acquisition, or cost per conversion. These are the three most common names for that. A lot of platforms call them different things, so we wanted to feature the top three ones, and that's just measuring the price you pay for each lead generated. And it's really important for this step is that you set the price that you're wanting to pay for each lead or conversion that comes through. And that is to where, again, you can measure performance to make sure the campaign is going in the right direction, but also those tactics are to where you can then inform your optimizations down the road. And then the other one is click-through rate, and that's a really popular one that most people are familiar with, and that's measuring how often people click your ad after it's shown to them. And this this metric really helps us understand the effectiveness of the ad that is running, to where we know, like, do we have to adjust ad copy to be able to get our end result? And then cost per click. And this is the actual price you pay for each click in your campaign. And this metric is mostly associated with PPC campaigns, but it is just something to kind of keep an eye on, to where you can also set, like, the max amount you want to pay for that click. And now here's a dashboard example. So this is something that we use to kind of visually show how each tactic is performing in an overall media campaign. So not just how is paid search performing, but in this example right here, it'd be how are Google ads performing compared to Bing ads, and then also comparing the two social platforms. And so that really helps break down overall performance by channel, and then the overall costs that are coming in for those channels, to really help also inform optimizations across the board, but also paint that visual to where you can visually see at a glance how every tactic is performing, and then how it's doing month over month or year over year, whatever the the comparison is. And now we're on to our sample media mix. And so what you're seeing here is just an example of all of media tactics that would be running for an overall media plan. And this the media mixes really help paint that visual picture of the budget allocations to the different tactics, to where you can kind of get that picture of how much money is going towards PPC compared to influencer, compared to paid social, to where you can kind of see how the overall media plan is coming to life for the different objectives that have been set.
So then we want to talk about how do these tactics play into the customer journey. And at any given moment, a customer could come in contact with any piece of content or any piece of paid marketing out of your media mix. So we want to take a look at that. How does that really impact the customer's journey through the end of the cycle to the purchase itself? And you know, a lot of studies by Nielsen, by ComScore, by some of the large data houses have found that it takes about 6 touch points with a piece of your content to finalize the sale. And so we want to make sure that we're touching on all of those channels, touching them in any channel that they may be looking at, based on, again, tying it back to your overall plan, your overall strategy. How are we going to make these things work? And so you see here a lot of the web and native ads, the targeted search, the influencer social. Of course, trade shows, we would be remiss if we didn't mention trade shows, specifically in the B2B space. You know, and so we're looking at digital tactics here to be able to drive traffic to those virtual pages or to the different events that you may be participating in that are now online. And everything from the end of the funnel type of influencer reviews to programmatic, and then through in-app. And we do work with some companies that do some in-app purchases or do some in-app advertising. So we really enjoy watching these conversions take place, watching people move through the funnel. But it does take all of these things to make your media mix successful, specifically if you're doing a large-scale campaign.
Okay, great. So our final poll for the day is that we've talked about a lot of different media tactics, and we want to know from your perspective what media tactics are helping your business gain the most leads. Going to give you guys about 10 more seconds to vote, and then I'll close the poll. All right, and here are the results. In the lead are targeted EBlasts, which we have utilized a lot for our clients. Obviously, PPC pays a big part of lead gen campaign. And finally, website and e-newsletters comes in third. White paper sponsorships for this team or this group were not as effective.
Okay. So that's really interesting. The neat part about this, that particular poll, is that the results have kind of changed. Yes, targeted e-blasts are fantastically successful, as are white paper sponsorships, PPC, all of the above really can be, but it's good to see that it's those targeted e-blasts that are really driving that traffic. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about with the different tactics that you use is the idea of gated content. And so in this particular case, it's own channel versus third-party gated content. Own channel, again, is tying those pieces of content back to your website or landing page, where someone has to fill out a form or give you a piece of data or contact information in order to obtain a white paper, a case study, or access a digital tool, or have an additional contact with, and maybe even have contact with a salesperson, however you choose to set that up. Third-party gated content is when that person or that publication, that entity hosts your content on their website, on their landing page, and then the user would either have to submit that same type of information as they would to your website, or they may have already opted in through maybe another piece of content that they've received through that third party, and then that information is then provided back to the person having the content, or would be provided in this case back to you or to DeanHouston.
All right, so now we're ready to talk about PPC ads for lead generation campaigns. When running PPC for lead generation, there are going to be benefits and challenges, and so we're going to kind of talk to those. A lot of the benefits with running PPC ads for lead generation are, we know that user is actively looking for the information. So that we know that they turn to the search engines to look things up. So being there for what they're looking for is really important. And then we're able to control how much you want to pay for each of those interactions. So we can set that overall cost per click max, or even a cost per acquisition max for how much you're willing to pay for the click and the conversion, which is really nice. And then we're able to target the ads to the desired audience based on geographies, age, and other criteria that are important to the campaign. And then the great benefit is with paid search and PPC ads, you can proactively update the ads, the budgets, and the targeting based on the results through those ongoing optimizations that Jamie touched on earlier in this presentation. Some of the challenges that you can run into are accidental clicks from users that can eat up your daily budget, and that's why that continuous monitoring of the campaigns and what's happening after the click is so important, to where you can kind of move away from those accidental clicks. And then the bidding wars with the digital competitors, so keeping an eye on the people who are bidding on the same keywords as you, just to where you can make sure that that is still relevant for you, but also to where you're bidding efficiently and effectively. And then sometimes those users are still in that research phase, so they're not necessarily always wanting to give away their information for a download or signing up for something. They might just want to read a blog or an article. So those are other challenges that we can face, and just seeing what happens post-click is very important. And then search intent for the keywords can change over time. And that's a really important thing to continue to watch, is how is Google through the algorithm, or Bing through their algorithms, displaying the organic results, but also the people who are bidding on the same keywords. Has that stayed the same since the campaign launch, or has it changed? So paying attention to those things to overcome those challenges is very important. And then also making sure, altogether, it's benefit and challenges, paying attention to the ad copy, making sure that you are calling out what it is you're wanting the user to do once they land on your website. And similar to these examples that we presented right here, is it going to be a free course or a download? Are they signing up for a class, or just signing up to receive more information sent to their inbox?
Great, thanks, Lauren. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about or look at today was just a content-specific type of a PPC campaign. One of the things that many of our clients in the B2B space face is that they work through distributors. So this provides kind of a challenge for us when we're planning a PPC campaign, because we don't want to drive up those costs, like Lauren mentioned earlier. You know, cost per click is a particular measurement tool that we have, or a KPI. But one of the things that we look at is how can we help supplement those efforts for our distributors. So one way we can do that is a content-specific PPC campaign. And in this case, we had a client that wanted to do something specific to their industry and was really interested in educating some of the new users. We're really seeing a strong growth in the age groups of 35 to 44 and 25 to 34 as users for a lot of the website content, as baby boomers continue to retire again. So we want to make sure that we're providing the type of content that they're looking for, and most of that right now happens to be what our social media gurus calls edutainment type of articles, which are both engaging, entertaining, but they also give you a piece of valuable information that you need to know. So we're seeing a lot of success when we marry these types of PPC campaigns along with a social campaign that is very heavily grounded in content.
Okay, so this is my bread and butter. We are at website and e-newsletters. So another way to generate leads through paid media is with website and e-newsletter advertising. Websites are ideal for awareness campaigns. The impression count is typically higher on websites, so it keeps your product and or service top of mind to anyone who is browsing in your target market. And e-newsletters are ideal for engagement. So e-newsletter ads are sent directly to a user after they've already opted in to receive that specific newsletter in that specific market. So it means they're already interested in your type of product or service you provide. So you know when you're doing e-newsletter advertising that you're really hitting your specific target market. Okay, and then we have banner ads and e-newsletter ads, or native ads. And then this is just an example of the difference between a banner ad and a native ad. As you can see, there's two banner ads utilized, one on a website, one on an e-newsletter. And then towards the bottom, you can see the native ad is within the e-newsletter. And then this is just an example. I'm going to go into a deeper dive here. Okay. So here's a quick breakdown and description of the difference between native ads and banner ads and when to best utilize each one. So native ads have a higher CTR at around 0.16%. And these ads tend to offer solution-based content, which we've seen performs very well when you're offering the reader, you know, something that's going to fix the issue that they have. And then native ads are also a good option for lead generation, as most publications do offer leads for those who click on the native ad for more information. And then they do share those leads with us, which in turn we share the client. And then native ads also appear similar to the published content already in the e-newsletter. So in essence, this ad doesn't look like an ad, and this will help the reader trust the ad and trust your brand. And the more someone trusts your ad, the more likely they are to engage with it. And then banner ads, they have a lower CTR at around 0.05%, but don't discredit that. Banner ads are really great for retargeting campaigns and to keep your product or service top of mind to anyone browsing in the markets you're targeting. And as Jamie mentioned before, theory does suggest that there are 6 touch points that a buyer needs before investing in a product or service. So banner ads are a great supplement to any campaign, especially a lead generation campaign. Banner ads also are important. It's also important for your banner ads to have a strong CTA or a call to action. This will encourage the potential buyer to interact with your ad and take them through to the website or any specific landing page. And these ads also give the design team a little freedom to create a really eye-catching ad, which is something they don't have with a native ad. And it gives them the chance to really capture your brand's identity and your brand's essence, which just helps your brand identity in the long run.
So the next thing that we have, and most of you, it sounds like, are familiar with these, is a couple of examples of EBlasts. This is, again, a case where most of the time these are a third-party gated content type of activity. But what we use these for is really to build out, if we're really honing in on a specific target that we know is going to have a higher engagement, that we know, and typically that is because they do have a higher cost per lead associated with them, but the leads tend to also be more authentic and better qualified, so to speak. Another type of example is a white paper, and most of the time these are hosted again on a third party. You receive an email, or maybe you click on an ad in on a website or something where it takes you to a landing page, you fill out the form, and then you obtain a video or maybe an infographic or a white paper. In this case, it is a white paper. But what ends up happening is either the lead comes back to you after a specified time, or it comes to your agency, and then, of course, in our case, then we would either upload them to your CRM or send them back to you. So another piece that we would consider, or another thing that we would consider as part of a media plan, is list buying, targeted list buying. We're not exactly fans of this. There's several reasons here. Most of it is a higher cost per lead, GDPR in California, privacy violations. You know, I had an interesting conversation with a coworker yesterday, and he said, you know, I agree with everything except your trade show list. He said, I'm not even sure about those, you know, by the time we qualify those and make sure they're good. But he said, you know, I do agree that there is some value to those. So Lauren has some thoughts she'd like to share on that as well.
Yes, so a lot of what Jamie has already said about the higher cost per lead and the potential of the other violations. Some of the other exceptions are, you know, vetted third-party lists are ones that we would be comfortable with, like that we say we're comfortable with people purchasing, as they are usually vetted and everyone has already opted in to receive emails from people who have used those lists. And then some of the other things that we say on why buyer beware with the list is if they're not from a vetted company, sometimes you might run into a situation where you just receive mailing addresses versus email addresses. So those are a lot of the things you want to consider before buying a list.
So here we kind of take a look at a particular campaign. This is a case where we were asked to review a client's media plan and then see where they could optimize it, where they could increase their lead count, what types of tactics may be better, or even take a look at, are they even in the right publications, or are they targeting to the right audience? And again, this ties back into what we talked about for planning, right? Where we talked about the value of being proactive and taking a look at the buyer personas, taking a look at the industries, what all is going on in the markets, in the different markets that they may play in. We have a lot of clients that have products that range from everything from oil and gas to automotive parts to just industry technical products in general. And so we try to make sure that we're honing in on those particular industries very carefully with the budgets that we have. And so by doing that, again, all of you or many of you have worked with targeted EBlasts and seen significant success, as did this particular client, as you can see. We also utilize a lot of targeted e-newsletters. Again, Maggie mentioned native ads a few minutes ago. And so we do a lot of native and unsponsored content ads within those targeted e-newsletters. And then we use website ads. And most of the website ads that we use when we're speaking about lead generation is kicking those back to a specific landing page or product page that is gated, where the user would fill out a form to get that we would use to send them additional information about the product, as well as give them access to what they're seeking in that particular moment. In this case, you know, we were asked to help them obtain 600 leads in a year, and by reworking their budget and a few of the tactical items, we were able to help them significantly, not just in the first month, but also throughout the year. So how do you have a webinar on lead generation and paid media and not discuss COVID, right? So today we want to talk to you a little bit about some of the tactics that we can use that we're seeing are being successful for our clients. And the big one being, how can I generate leads if I'm not at a trade show? In the B2B space, particularly working with buyers and distributors, a lot of that is based on a handshake, right? It's based on those face-to-face interactions that we have. And so how do we have those touch points? How do we have those contacts? And again, we're going to tie this back into EBlasts and native content, social media, utilizing all of the different content that you have, or maybe it's new content, or, you know, in the case that we've had some great success for our clients in having virtual trade shows, then we use some of the website and the e-newsletter banner ads to drive traffic to that. And we use PPC campaigns that are, as Lauren mentioned, targeted right back to those landing pages, or if they're being, say your association is having a landing page, or you have a landing page on your association's virtual trade show, how are we going to drive more traffic to that for somebody who may or may not have been going to the trade show, but is certainly going to participate or visit that website now that it's virtual?
All right, so
Sorry. Apologies.
I was going to say, how do I know which tactic to use and when? Jamie did touch on some of that, but the other things to drill into that a little bit more would be, looking at what has historically worked in the past, but also paying attention to seasonality, because since some of the trade shows have been canceled, we're seeing users behave a lot differently online than they have in the past. So they're visiting those websites more. So looking into and testing new lead generation programs that could be through a specific publisher, or testing out a new platform that you're suddenly seeing more traffic coming from your website. And so just really paying attention to those behavior changes that are associated to different tactics.
Okay, so how do you select the lead generation program? Well, I'm going to use our president's favorite phrase, it depends. So one of the things that we have to consider is, again, budget. How is this going to tie back into your overall paid marketing strategy? How is this all going to tie back into your overarching media strategy? And then what are the business goals? If your business goals are to generate 600 leads in a year, let's take a look at where you currently stand with that. What tactics have worked in the past, as Lauren just mentioned? What is available? That's another issue that we're facing, or going to be facing very soon, is, as all of these trade shows continue to move online, and there are a significant number of trade shows in the fall, how are we going to have access to some of these lead generation programs? How do we choose? Because there's only so many opportunities out there that we have. How do we choose that? And the answer again is, it depends on your goals. It depends on your budget, and it depends on how much do you know about your audience? Have you done those buyers personas to know who you need to target? So what's the end game? That's what you always have to ask yourself, is what do I need to do, and how much time, money, and what's available to me? That's the real downside with some of these digital tactics, is that there's only so many of them. So being proactive, thinking ahead, planning ahead is how we can do that. And right now, at some of these trade shows, I know I received some trade show information on sponsorships for NACS this morning. So we want to take a look at that this afternoon, and as a team, identify the best lead generation strategies for our clients. And that's what you should do too, if you don't have an agency, if you're a one-person shop, and we do see a lot of those. So take a look at that, and ultimately be able to tie it all back into your goals.
And then how do you determine whether or not your lead generation efforts are successful? That is tying back up to when we were talking about KPIs. So really paying attention to what those goals were that you set, and did the overall campaign cost per lead come in at what you wanted it, or even below? If it came in below, then that's amazing and you want to celebrate that. But really paying attention to the KPIs and the goals, and making sure everything you set was met.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of different things today, and just as a wrap up, we've talked about the types of media, the benefits of each. I mean, obviously we focused on lead gen media tactics, but it's important to, as we talked about from a planning perspective, to make sure that you are thinking about your planning process as lining up with your marketing and business objectives, making sure that you know the audiences that you're going after, the budgets that you have available, being proactive about your planning, but being able to pivot and optimize as the year goes on, and as things change. As we started in January, things are not the same now. So we've done a lot of pivoting in 2020. Make sure that you establish your KPIs up front, to ensure that everyone kind of knows where we're headed, and specifically the media tactics have their very specific KPIs, of course. And then going through all the media tactics, especially from a lead gen perspective, PPC, EBlasts, utilizing banner ads, e-newsletters, native ads, all of those things can work and will work as long as everything is proactively planned out. And then finally, just making sure that as we have had to pivot in the COVID timeframe, that we're thinking about how to change our lead gen efforts to accommodate the fact that we can't get face-to-face with our customers. So at this time, we'd like to open it up to any questions, unless Jamie or Lauren or Maggie, you have anything else to add?
No, Amy, I do thank you for today and pointing out, it does matter to set your KPIs up front and communicating those across the team and across the organization. That was an awesome point. Thank you for adding that.
Any other questions from our attendees? I don't have any questions. I'm going to give about 10 more seconds. We must have covered everything fabulously. Well, if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to our media team or any one of your contacts at DeanHouston. We'd be happy to talk further about any of this with you. And we so appreciate your time today and for you joining us. And we will give you back about 10 minutes of your day, or 15 actually. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.